All right, guys, it's Mrs. Stewart with another short video on documents. Today we're going to be talking about the charters of the Virginia Company of London. And a charter is just like a blueprint for a local government. For example, if I wanted to create a town called Stewartville, I would petition our General Assembly, who is the state's legislative branch, for a charter. And in that charter, it would spell out what my powers of the city are, or the town is, and how it's going to be structured. Okay, so powers are going to be different for each township or city because, for example, in Newport News, they have access to the bay. But Windsor wouldn't because they're not on the bay. So they don't have needs to have power over that, right? And then structure-wise, it's going to say what type of a municipal you are going to be. So are you going to be a city? Are you going to be a town? And then if you're a town, what county are you going to be a part of? So, for example, Smithfield is a town that is part of the Isle of Wight County. And the county is the one that provides all of the resources that would be normally provided by a city. So the charters of the Virginia Company of London allowed colonists to establish the town of Jamestown. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and let's take a look at why the charters of the Virginia Company of London was so significant to our Constitution. So the charters basically guaranteed the rights of the Englishmen to colonists. So remember how we talked about the Magna Carta and all the rights that Englishmen had given to them by the Magna Carta. So your right to a speedy trial, right to a trial by a jury, rule of law, all those things. Those rights were bestowed upon the colonists. The king said, you have these rights, and when you come to America, you'll have the same rights as all Englishmen. Okay, well, we know that didn't happen because, for one, we know that they didn't have a right to a trial by a jury of their peers because a lot of times the governor of the colony was the one that sentenced them to whatever punishment they had. So these violations of these rights actually directly led to the writing of the Declaration of Independence and ultimately the Revolutionary War. So this was a big deal because the initial charter, and there were several afterwards, but the initial charter was granted by King James I in 1606. So who can tell me, when did we sign the Declaration of Independence, and when did the Revolutionary War start? 1776. So we're talking, this wasn't just like a quick thing where we were like, we don't want to be part of England anymore. We don't like what they're doing. Guys, this is almost 200 years later. Okay, so the original Jamestown was created in 1606, and then our revolution, the Declaration of Independence, was signed in 1776. So we're talking like 170 years difference. And that's 170 years of having our rights trampled on by the English, and our Magna Carta rights basically ignored by the English, okay? So that is the reason why the Charters of the Virginia Company of London is so significant, because it led directly to the Declaration of Independence, which led directly to our Constitution, which established our government. And part of the reason why a lot of those rights were written in, like our First Amendment rights were written into the Constitution, had to do with the fact that all of these rights were suppressed over the 170 years that we were supposed to have that we didn't have. So they wanted to make sure that they wrote these down. Now, guys, you might see a test or a quiz that has some words in it that maybe you might not be familiar with, that are going to be a part of the charters of the Virginia Company of London. So I've highlighted a few here. If you look at this closely, if you were to read it, this is Old English, and this is how they used to write and actually speak. It's very hard for us to understand it because language evolves over years. And this is several years ago that this was written. So 1600, we're talking 200 and I can't do the math on the top of my head right now, but we're talking over 200 years, right? So colonies and plantations, if you see the words colonies and plantations, we're going to assume that it's probably England that is referring to us. Because do you think that we as Americans, even if we were colonists, would refer to ourselves as colonies? Probably not, right? So we're probably going to refer to ourselves as Virginia, as Georgia. We're going to refer to ourselves as the name that we established for that colony, okay? So if you see the word colonies and plantations, especially with plantations written the way that that is written, it's most likely coming from the document, the Charters of the Virginia Company of London, okay? Kings and princes. Guys, did we have kings and princes after we established our independence from Great Britain? No. Remember, in fact, we were quite adamant that we would not have kings and princes. So if you see a document referring to kings and princes, you can almost be certain that it was written by the English and that it's probably coming from the charters, because we would not make any type of allusion to kings and princes in any of our documents, in any of our democratic documents, okay? And then the realm of England, again, just because a realm is like a vicinity of a monarchy, and so the realm of England is talking about the monarchy of England. And of course, now we don't recognize the monarchy as being our government. So any documents written especially written after our Declaration of Independence, we would not refer to it as the realm of England, because that would not be our monarchy. All right, guys, if you have any questions, please reach out to me. Otherwise, I will see you next time.